This video will contain spoilers for the entirety of Chainsaw Man Part 1, the manga. You have been warned, and this is the only warning you will get. Paneling is the lifeblood of all visual storytelling mediums. It is the way that images and text boxes are arranged on a page and can heavily influence the flow of the action. But you've heard me say this about 2 times already if you've been following this little mini-series on paneling. If you haven't, well, you can either keep watching or watch the other 2 episodes and come back. I don't really mind, I'm just very happy to have you. Hi. Paneling follows a lot of very strict rules when it comes to how to guide the eye. There are conventions, there are ideas as to how you should panel, how you should not panel, and there is a lot of talk about what the ideal way is. But like any rule in art, sometimes the whole point of a rule is to be broken. And while you can look at something like My Hero Academia, which follows the rules to a T and perfects them, or something like Jujutsu Kaisen, which does follow the rules somewhat but flirts with the idea of bending them a little, you can also find stories that straight up dissolve the idea of what a panel is even supposed to be, going into true abstraction with it. And I think the best example for that in the current mainstream consciousness has to be Tatsuki Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is a series that one can very easily describe with a single word: fever dream. That's 2 words. Fuck. This crazy tale about demons and monsters is told in a very erratic and psychedelic way, and the paneling manages to capture that very well. This can be seen as early as chapter 1, with this 2-page spread of Denji stabbing an attacker. You can tell that while the rules of paneling do still apply, there is a lot of playfulness going on with what an image can really be. You have Denji stabbing outside of the panel space and into this giant face of an enemy, which is then on the 2nd page superimposed behind his blade, as if he's melting into the background. Additionally, Denji's chainsaws are often used to produce panel borders by themselves, and it gives it this idea that while this is a manga that follows the sort of rectangular visual storytelling that graphic novels are usually known for, it is not afraid to play with that and to become a bit more creative, and you can really see it this early on, and it just keeps going with it. As you surely know or have noticed by now, Chainsaw Man's art style is also sort of in the category of rather rough than pretty, but that is one of its greatest strengths because again, it can play with that to create true visual chaos that nonetheless still works. One thing that comes to my mind is this page from chapter 3 of Aki punching Denji, which at first glance seems like just your average, oh, someone's getting punched page in manga, but then look at how effectively it guides the eye. You start at Aki's head, and then, because of the speed lines everywhere, you immediately snap from there to Denji's head that is just getting smacked. From there, you see this smacking stroke that leads your eye back up to Aki's hand, which is basically just a smear. It gives it so much momentum, and it achieves that by the fact that it is not particularly clean or conventionally pretty. It's a rough page that nonetheless communicates its message and intent perfectly. Some staple tricks of the manga industry do make their return here as well, showing that Tatsuki Fujimoto is more than capable of using conventional paneling as well. One thing that he loves to do is to create this effect of almost panning the camera across a scene by separating one image into 2 panels. This might not seem like a big deal, but when you separate a full image into these 2 sections, you tell the eye to first focus on one of them and then on the other, which creates this very natural movement as if a camera is being panned in a movie, which in this case makes sense because it's sort of an establishing shot of Denji waking up in a dirty apartment after going out drinking. But of course, none of these are why you clicked on this video. No, Chainsaw Man did something very special. It decided that maybe paneling should become the main thing it is known for a couple of chapters, and created what is now, I think, referred to as the Hell arc. Without going into huge spoiler details, the gang goes to Hell, and Hell is not really something you can visualize very easily, and so Chainsaw Man tries to do it by throwing a whole bunch of absolutely mesmerizingly terrifying imagery onto the screen, and immediately some really clever tricks in how panels are made make their way into the story. For example, to enter Hell, one of the villains has to do a sacrifice of a couple of orphans that they have in their custody. And as they enchant that sacrifice, this is the page that we get. Chilling, fantastic, and 100% effective. Even without the context I just laid out, I think you'd be able to tell what is happening here. These 3 kids are getting sacrificed, erased from the page literally by the finger of the villain, becoming part of the white space behind the panels, as the finger is not actually separated from the page itself. Absolutely brilliant. Then comes the actual trip to hell, where a giant hand is seen preparing to grab a building in one page, and you flip the page, and voila, the hand is closed, severed, in the middle of the wilderness. This is not necessarily paneling, but it is a type of sequential imaging, where these 2 images only work if you look at them one after another very closely in succession. In fact, you can even see that the hand's position upon each page is very reminiscent of each other, creating this feeling of consistency and space. And then you get to hell itself, a room filled with doors, where the doors themselves almost become panels. There is this establishing page for the spirit of hell, where we essentially get to see a whole bunch of doors lined up right next to a whole bunch of panels, showing the environment, the flowers on the bottom of hell, and it just creates this wonderful sequence of confusion yet establishment, and it is a very tight balance to strike that Chainsaw Man strikes almost without effort. But maybe my favorite example of this sort of visual storytelling through overwhelming information comes right at the end of this arc, when the doll demon, or Santa, is destroyed by Halloween, which essentially sends them into an endless library dimension. And we get this absolutely humongous double-page spread of just a humongous library, and we get this tiny panel of the person getting crushed between the books. It's not a crazy amount of paneling energy here, but it still is a wonderful visual metaphor for what is actually happening, and I really, really love that. However, beyond just the pure paneling, Fujimoto also plays around a lot with sound effects, which is why I imagine releasing those English volumes takes so long, because translating these sound effects to still work visually is probably a Herculean task. Just look at this page from the Hell Devil arc, where the Darkness Devil cuts apart our friends with a slish visual sound effect. Just a wonderful example of how Chainsaw Man continues to push the envelope at how he can tell stories in non-conventional ways. And this isn't even touching upon the actual imagery of this arc, which is just... Thank you everyone for watching. As always, it's a great pleasure to make these videos for you, and also as always, a great thank you to all of our patrons who should be on screen right now. A special thank you to Daniel Garcia, Fiction Ape, Cini, Victor Perez, Cesar Londono, Gio, Jameson Tate, Pero Scocco, Mr. Meander, and Paracha. See you all next time. Be safe, be healthy, wash your hands. Bye bye.